Hi, everyone. I think we're ready to begin. We wanted to begin a little bit late because there are just so many people, literally thousands of people on this call today, and we wanted to make sure that you all got on in time for this event. I want to welcome you, certainly, first of all, from the United Nations Association Westchester chapter. And I want to welcome you in the name of our board of directors, our many guests, and the wonderful folks who have worked behind the scenes to enable this process today. Certainly, I thank Raina, Trisha, Derek, Devron, and all of you who have helped behind the scenes make today occur. My name is Patrick Shirata, and I will be helping to moderate today. But one thing that's very important is that the young folks who are on, especially the young creative folks, we ask you to stay on throughout all of the 50 minutes or so for this presentation, because towards the end, we are going to entertain some of your questions. Questions that you have about how to make creative work out of social action or political situations. And we actually have some really wonderful people here to address that, from Rock Your World and from Bond Street Theater coming up. You know, one really basic human right that I think, especially the youth on this call today, can relate to is bullying. We need the right to remain safe. That has to be a major human right for all of us, young and old, to be allowed to be who we are. Now, there's a young woman who has addressed this for us at the United Nations General Assembly Hall, and we'd like to bring her on to speak first. But we ask you to please stay with us after so we could discuss and see if your questions become those that we can help answer for you for the future. The amazing star of Stranger Things, Enola Holmes, who has developed this wonderful beauty line called Florence, and many, many other talents that are being displayed at such a very young age, comes to us today as the Goodwill Ambassador for UNICEF. And we'd like to ask you to please welcome Miss Millie Bobby Brown. Ms. Brown, the stage, the floor, and the General Assembly Hall are yours.
In world capitals and buildings like this, adults talk about children's rights. But today, young people don't want to be talked about. We want to do the talking. Millions of people responded to UNICEF surveys and petitions about what the Convention on the Rights of the Child meant to them. In the words of one young person, be an active voice. Don't let things go unnoticed. So today, I want to talk about an issue that is very personal to me, something that so often goes unnoticed but causes real suffering: bullying. Like David, I've been very lucky in my life. I take nothing for granted. But I also know what it feels like to be vulnerable. At school, I was bullied by a group of students. I remember feeling helpless. School used to be a safe place, and now I was scared to go. I didn't know who I could trust or who I could turn to. Like millions of other girls around the world, I've also been bullied and harassed online. It's a terrifying feeling to look at your phone and see that messages that people are sending you are filled with anger, hate, and even threats. So many of these are strangers and anonymous trolls on the internet. And like all bullies, they gain their power by taking power away from others, by making them feel scared and helpless as I did. I was lucky. With the help of my friends, family, and people around me, I was able to overcome these negative feelings and take my power back. But millions of children aren't so lucky. They're still struggling in the darkness, wrestling with fear, with insecurity. Bullying and online threats are never harmless, never just words. It puts children's mental health at risk. It causes stress, and in the most extreme cases and in areas around the world where conflict and violence are daily threats, it can lead to self-harm, sickness, and even suicide. Today at UNICEF, I talk a lot about kindness, about how we can shape positive environments in schools, and how we can support each other online. I'm convinced that social media doesn't have to be a place of fear, bullying, and harassment. It can bring people together. It can be a place of love and support. Somewhere in the world right now, a teenage girl is being bullied online. She's scared, she's vulnerable, she feels alone. My message to her is this: you are not alone. There are people who care about you, and there are people who will listen if you reach out for help. You have rights. In my role as a Goodwill ambassador, I will continue talking about this wherever I go. I will take every opportunity to spread the word about how we can end bullying online and off. But I'm not alone about speaking about children's rights. I'm joined by tens of thousands of other young people from every part of the world demanding to be heard. In September, in this very building, Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old girl, told world leaders an uncomfortable truth. She told them that the adults of the world had failed to act on climate change, and she's carrying that message around the world. And now, Greta's message is being echoed every Friday when thousands of young people leave their classrooms to protest the world's inaction to climate change. Young people like her are shouting for world leaders to hear, to listen, and to act. Every one of you here today can be the loudspeaker that turns our voices into real change, into policies, programs, laws, and investments that keep children safe, that make our world a better, healthier, stronger place for all. 30 years ago, Audrey Hepburn reminded us the power of the rights protected in the Convention. These rights matter, they are eternal, but they are not automatic. It's up to all of us to bring these rights to life. On this World Children's Day, let's be mindful of Audrey's words and carry her commitment forward. The children of the world are asking you to stand with us, listen to us, and renew your promises to the world's children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. That was truly an important statement, not only on bullying, but about youth empowerment. And we hope that you all take that seriously, take it to heart, and understand the power and the importance of her address to the United Nations on the International Day of the Child last year in 2019. To discuss this further, we asked a staff member from the United Nations to join us. Ms. Hawa Diallo works primarily with youth and non governmental organizations, or nonprofits, as we in the US often call them, to enable them to better interact with the United Nations and to understand their needs, desires, challenges, and concerns, and especially for those among the youth, though she works with very, very closely through a youth subcommittee that she leads. She also has been very, very active in enabling NGOs throughout the world to have a better, clearer, stronger voice at the United Nations for their interests everywhere in the world. Ms. Diallo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for really such a warm welcome and introduction. I'm saying I'm feeling all the warmth and energy all around the screen. I'm told there are thousands of people that have signed on, and that's just so befitting given the topic that we're addressing today. So, hello, everybody. Happy Human Rights Day. And I want to just recall the theme for 2020 for Human Rights Day, which is Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. I want to thank UNA Westchester and UNICEF for sharing Millie Bobby Bryant's talk with us. And as she was speaking, 2 points actually came to my mind that she talked about. She mentioned that rights matter, but they're not automatic, and that it's up to us to bring these rights to life. She also talked about turning voices into change, into policy, laws, and investments that keep young people safe. She talked about bullying and gave her experience, but I think also I want to highlight the fact that there is cyberbullying also, and that's something that really we need to take special attention to, especially during these times of COVID-19. So, for us at the United Nations, as most of you know, human rights is a pillar of the work of the organization since the very start in 1945. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights that came into being in 1948 really stands as the foundation of that work. So it's really agreed that human rights lens is important in the work that the UN does. And what's even more encouraging is that over the years, bullying itself has been seen as a human rights violation. So it's agreed that it's a global issue and that it requires a global response. But unfortunately, today, there really is no global response. The agreement is there that it's a global challenge, but I think that, we need to work even harder to have a concerted effort or a coordinated effort between governments, multilateral organizations like the UN, civil society, youth groups, and everyday citizens and families really to have a global response to bullying. So, as I mentioned in the UN, it's important having a human rights lens in all the work we do. So, you're probably asking yourself, so, what has the UN done? What has been the UN response? So, the UN itself, located all around the world, has international offices, regional offices, but country offices, which are of most important. But it has over 40 organizations, and many of them are working on human rights, and many of them are focused just on children. So maybe some of you have heard about the International Labor Organization that is based in Geneva. Everybody knows about UNICEF. Its major focus is on children. There's a specific office in the UN Secretariat here in New York, the Office for the Special Representative on Violence Against Children, and they do a lot of work just focused on young people and adolescents. And bullying, as a matter of fact, is one of the issues that they deal with. In addition to all these offices that are doing program work, policy work, there have been a lot of UN conventions or treaties around the world that governments have signed that they in turn need to turn into local legislature. So maybe people have heard about the Convention on Torture. There's actually a convention on the rights of the child, which we all know so well, because it's actually one of the most ratified ever conventions of the United Nations. I remember working as a tour guide at the United Nations when the convention was issued, and there was a big meeting of all the member states, and you had heads of states from all around the world who came to highlight that convention and to actually, sign it so that it can go into, it can be ratified and put into law. Now, I want to focus on the Office of the Special Representative on Violence Against Children because they've done a lot of interesting work. They have a decade to end violence against children. For many years, they talked about child soldiers, and they still do. They really work to amplify the voice of young children around the world, and they also focus a lot on children that are deprived by poverty, and as I mentioned, children also who are in conflict. But for me, what's really interesting is that they're working to support governments, and whether that's local, national, and also organizations at a regional level, so they can put policies into place against human rights violations against children, but specifically also bullying. Many children's decorations also have been put into place around the world, and regional consultations also that the United Nations supports to bring some focus and some local legislature against violence against children and specifically bullying. And I know that in 2019, 30 years practically after the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Office on Violence Against Children put together, along with UNICEF actually, a report which they called Keeping the Promise, Ending Violence Against Children. And they had a significant chapter on bullying. And one of the things I found out as I was reading about this topic is I was really surprised. They did these consultations around the world. And I was alarmed to find out that around 1 in 3 young people in over 30 countries that they surveyed said that they had been bullied online. And then you had 1 in 5 who said that they actually skipped school because of bullying. So these key findings are very important for us to take into mind as we are doing our work and putting together programs for to combat bullying. I mentioned UNICEF before, and of course, they have a major role in children, I said. So they are doing all the practical work of awareness raising, developing policy, reports, and also doing resources that can be shared not only to governments and programs, but to families. I mean, I found some interesting ones, which I'll put on the chat later. How to talk to your children about bullying. And then there was a specific one on cyberbullying and what should be done to stop it, which I found very interesting. So definitely I invite you to listen to these sites, to look at these sites afterwards. Now, so what do I do at the UN besides just being awesome and beautiful? Well, I'm very proud, as Patrick said, to be supporting the work of strengthening NGO and UN engagement and doing advocacy to NGOs around the world, but especially to youth groups. At the UN, there's several ways that you can be involved, either through my Department of Global Communications, or through the Economic and Social Council. But my office is working with NGOs to be information ambassadors. We have a campaign called Verified, which is talking about misinformation in the times of COVID. At one time, my office did a fantastic campaign on human rights, where they had different people around the world, like you and me, record the different articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I think I'll put that in the chat also, that you guys, so you can also take advantage of that. But my job really also is to make sure that at the United Nations, that people understand the value of civil society and the value of young people and what they bring to the table. And reminding us at the United Nations that, it's not about us inviting civil society or working with them, but we also have to be sure to meet civil society and youth at their specific tables. One of the most important things my office does is that we work with the Economic and Social Council and the President of the General Assembly to accredit NGOs just like you, people just like you, to attend high-level meetings at the United Nations. So I want you to know that you have a place at the United Nations. It's not this far building somewhere in New York City or in the middle of your town, but it's something that is accessible. I'm very happy to be working with young people who are in NGOs. As Patrick said, I manage the Youth Representative Steering Committee. They are awesome. There are 30 young people who advise the Department of Global Communications what we can do better to work with young people. I have one of the fantastic members of the Youth Steering Committee here with me today, Rania Papadopoulou, who is from Greece. She's from one of the NGOs who are associated with DGC. And I want to give my remaining minutes to her so that I can lift up the voice of young people. And her NGO is doing a lot of work on human rights and bullying. So it's my honor really to pass it on to Rania to take over and to really share the work that she's doing all the way from Greece. Over to you, Rania. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Hala. It's a great honor to be here with you today and being able to talk about the work we are doing against bullying in Greece and in a European level. So it won't take long. All children have the right to life. Or do they? I want you to close your eyes and imagine a colorful 3-floor building full of children playing, running, laughing. Happy voices, music melodies, teachers chatting, children making their first steps into society. 3, 2, 1. Now imagine the same building, but now it's gray, full of angry voices, full of fear and hate. This is what a bullied child sees on a daily basis. Does this child have the same right to life? Yes, of course. But there's no one there to defend it. Now I want you to imagine that there are children in our world that cannot find pleasure and happiness in this happy place that other children call school, unless they make others suffer and show their power through this. Does these children have the same right to life? Of course. But their life is most of the time stigmatized for doing something wrong at the most fragile age. According to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, every child has the right to be protected from any form of violence. Of course, in 1989, bullying wasn't a matter of thought. However, now it is, and it clearly violates this fundamental right. Countless children get bullied daily, even now that schools are closed internationally. The pain, the harassment, the hurt follows them inside their school, inside their houses, through the digital world. As a young woman, I can guarantee that the fear of being bullied accompanies you throughout your childhood, no matter your appearance, your personality, your popularity, or your background. The smile of the child raises this issue for so many years. We highlight the fact that bullying, this phenomenon, has three parts: the child that gets bullied, the child that bullies, and the observers, children and adults. The first two parts need help, guidance, support. The third part needs empowerment to speak up and reveal what happens inside the school and inside the digital world. We should pay attention to what we say about bullying too. We have to do with children, that we are talking about children, we should be very, very careful. Children who suffer in an environment that we, the adults, created. We should start asking, what is happening with this child that bullies others? What is happening in the family, in the house, in the mind and in the heart of this child? Because something is definitely wrong, but it's not its fault. But it is our duty to find out what it is and help it, support it, like we do with the rest of the children. Because we don't accuse children for being weak. We should not accuse children for growing up in an environment that taught them that the only way to find happiness and strength is by making others suffer. At the Smile of the Child, in order to help children who suffer from bullying or from other things that lead them to bully other children, we implement a series of supportive, preventive, and therapeutic initiatives. Two of the most important initiatives are the interactive experiential activities targeting students, teachers, parents, and guardians, and the operation of the European Helpline for Children and Adolescents, 116-111, that offers counseling 24/7 for free to children who may get themselves in incidents of bullying. Apart from our national operation, we also have established IAN, the European Anti-Bullying Network, a network of 21 organizations from 14 European countries, which focus on tackling bullying on a European level. Each of us has been a child, and we all know that the best ally to everything that may happen to you in your childhood is your schoolmates. So we need to mobilize school community if we really want to deal with bullying once and for all. We should ask for the help of the children. At the Smile of the Child, we try to implement numerous actions, numerous activities with schools and students in order to give to every child the needed space to express themselves, and we make sure that their voice is heard in a national and European level. Child participation is the word, and only if we unite our powers, we will manage to get through this and end bullying once and for all. Let's give the proper education to children. Teach them respect, equality, love. Let's teach them the fundamental rights, their fundamental rights, and show them ways to promote and defend them. Use the arts to show them what kindness is. There are many children that really need it. Bullying is very personal to me because I can't accept having children hurting themselves or even ending their life because they feel ashamed of themselves. I cannot accept having children stigmatized for doing something wrong because they grew up in an environment that taught them that this wrong thing is how they will gain power. In times like this, in times that modern society face its biggest challenges. We should stop talking and start doing. We should show to the children that we are next to them and not against them. Show them that every child has the right to life, a life with dignity, protection, and safety. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Diallo, for taking your time today to be with us. We certainly appreciate it, and we appreciate your comments and look forward to discussing them further, perhaps during the Q&A period, to see if we can answer questions that might be raised by your presentation. Thank you so much, Howard. It's great having you with us. Now I turn to introducing the Bond Street Theater. In the early 1970s, the current artistic director, Joanna Sherman, and I, along with a number of actors, created a street theater company that performed exclusively for free for individuals, for groups throughout New York City, in the parks and in very special events where we just turned up. Maybe this was the beginning of flash mobs or guerrilla theater, but we created a long-lasting, tremendous organization that I left many years ago. And Joanna Sherman, the artistic director, has shepherded throughout the world in amazing ways with her partner, Michael McGuigan. Joanna and Michael have led Bond Street Theater to some of the most dangerous, compelling, and interesting regions throughout the world, many of whom have been affected by natural or man-made disasters, or have been victims of mass migration and its effects. They started out when I was in the company doing theater that had a social context that was related to current and political interests. But over the years, they have become leaders in the field of utilizing theater in order to expose human rights, community needs, and individual development. So they started out as a theater company and have become much, much more by utilizing theater to explore and expand on things like human rights. Very similar to the mission and vision of Rock Your World, that focuses on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and requests creative responses from young people in middle and high school to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Bond Street's work goes way beyond any one document or any one interest, but it's a fascinating theater company. I was proud to be a part of it for about 10 years. And I'm even more proud to introduce my friend and colleague, the managing director of Bond Street Theater, Mr. Michael McGuigan. Michael, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. As a theater practitioner, you can tell I'm gotten very used to wearing masks. And I hope you're wearing yours as well and staying safe. My name is Michael McGuigan. I'm here at the current home office of Bond Street Theater in New York City. And I am very honored to be here to tell you about the work of Bond Street Theater. Well, no, actually, that's not entirely true. I mean, I am honored to be here, but I can't tell you about the work of Bond Street Theater. I'd much rather be performing the work of Bond Street Theater, which, of course, this COVID has kind of curtailed for a while. We're looking forward to getting back on the road in 2021. So we're going to have to do sort of the next best thing. We have a video of some of our work, which I think will give you a better idea of what we're doing out in the world and using our work to bring messages from NGOs and issues that need to be discussed around the world. So let's see that video.
Bond Street Theatre was founded in 1976 by a group of physically skilled, socially concerned actors dedicated to innovative theatre and motivated by a passion to be useful in this world. The company trains extensively in the physical arts of many traditions to develop a theatrical language that is both captivating and understandable across cultural borders. As the group began touring to international festivals and theaters on a regular basis, we sought additional opportunities to reach out to the underserved communities in each country. The dynamically physical, nonverbal nature of our skills made communication easy. In 1999, when the war in Kosovo created 500,000 refugees, UNICEF put out a call to artists to provide much-needed interaction with the traumatized refugee children.
Kind person offered me to show me the way.
Bond Street Theatre directors Joanna Sherman and Michael McGuigan traveled to Skopje, Macedonia, and met with camp officials and relief organizations to offer workshops and performances.
Yeah, there's a radio of the dead. They're very organized. Good.
As a result of this experience, Bond Street Theatre began creating programs that focus on the performing arts as humanitarian outreach and a tool for education and healing.
Come in. So it's like right an explosion, and they're really dying, and then this we area to be like this, and they go and then they'll freeze and we'll put them inside.
The strategy for our programs unfolds in three parts.
Okay.
First, the ensemble identifies and collaborates closely with local artists and arts organizations, thus enjoying the benefits of mutual artistic exchange. As the actors explore and rehearse together, they become a team, and with the development of a new show, they can enter a community and present a model of intercultural cooperation and creativity. Often the co-production tours throughout the host region and the United States to bring the issues of the world closer to our local communities and dispel misunderstandings about other cultures and traditions. One such collaboration occurred with Theatre Cvete of Sofia, Bulgaria, resulting in a nonverbal production of Romeo and Juliet that toured throughout the Balkans and in the United States. In 2003, Bond Street Theatre began working with Exile Theatre of Kabul, Afghanistan. That same year, the first version of their collaboration, In the Mirror, was presented at Kabul University. In 2005 and 2009, the production, enhanced and retitled as Beyond the Mirror, toured to Tokyo, New York, Baltimore, and San Francisco. The second phase of the Intercultural Project involves working with our collaborators to design theater-based programs to address the needs of particular target groups, for example, street-working children, rural women and girls, or refugees. The resulting workshops and performances focus on building self-esteem, peaceful solutions to conflict, community action, health practices, and children's and women's rights. The show A Kite's Tale concerns children's rights for education and playtime.
Permission to play!
Their teacher arrives to enforce their rights against the plans of an evil land grabber.
What's going on?
Did you eat my food?
The hand-washing show, performed throughout Burma, emphasized the benefits of proper hygiene.
Did they
No.
wash their hands?
No.
You know what happens if you don't wash your hands? You're okay? You all right?
In the third phase of our project, the artists train educators, field workers, social specialists, health workers, and other stakeholders to use these theater-based techniques in their own work. This maximizes the sustainability and impact of our programs.
You mean the group got together?
করেছিলে এরকম
Did the performance
আর এটা আমরা দিল্লি থেকে করে এলাম না ও আচ্ছা দিল্লি থেকে করে এলাম পারফরম্যান্স দিল্লি
in Delhi?
হ্যাঁ
You did the performance in Delhi?
দিল্লি
The whole group?
দল গ্রুপ
We have more educational program for this generation. We will have a good community, for example, in the next 10 years or next 15 years. It is a big need for women to attend to the formal education, to integrate them, to help them to get formal education and life skill for empowerment of community, especially the women community. It's very necessary.
What's your biggest wish for the future?
I have a free personality.
To have a free personality. That's a good wish. That's a very good wish.
There you have it. So I hope that gives you a pretty good idea of how we've taken the performing arts, especially those that are very physically oriented, and collaborated with all these amazing artists and these wonderful NGOs around the world. So I want to give you one more example of some of the work that we've done and how that might relate to the Declaration of Human Rights. So if we look at two of the articles, for example, Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence in a country, and freedom to leave any country, including his own, and to return. And then there's Article 14. Everyone has the right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. Now, if countries and officials and the public of countries were sticking to all the Declaration of Human Rights, chances are nobody would be persecuted, nobody feel like they need to leave. Unfortunately, we're not exactly in that world right now. So we did a project in Malaysia based on this issue of refugees. Now, Malaysia is not a signatory to the UN Convention of Refugees, and yet there are more than 150,000 refugees and asylum seekers registered with the UNHCR, and there are many, many more unregistered. And there are refugees from Somalia, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, and Iraq. And that leaves this local refugee population in Malaysia extremely vulnerable and subject to exploitation and without basic services or legal protections. So this was an issue that we wanted to try to address, particularly since many of the refugees coming from Myanmar were the Rohingya refugees. That part of the country, and you might have heard recently in the news, where there was extreme persecution, and there have been a lot of a movement of these Rohingya to Bangladesh and then into Malaysia. And the idea is because Malaysia does not recognize refugees, they're looking for the possibility of a status to travel to another country. So Kuala Lumpur especially is a stopping off place. So if we can go to our slide presentation, I'll just go through a couple of slides here to see what that was like. Oh yes, and here's our website, www.bondst.org, and I'd welcome you to check out more of our work and get more detail. So hold on, let me get my command of my screen here. Here we go. So this was the work we came to do, and we associated with two NGOs, Asylum Access Malaysia, and you can see that's Nazim with his back to us. They are a legal NGO that tries to communicate to the refugees what their rights are. And normally they do it with a PowerPoint presentation and translators. Up in the corner there with the red scarf is Sharifa Hussain. She's the director of the Rohingya Women's Development Network, and very young. I think she was 19 or 20 at the time we met her, but she was full of knowledge and full of passion to help her people. And she herself was or is a refugee in Kuala Lumpur. We also associated with a local theater company because we always found we want to work with the local actors. And in the gray shirt there, that's Sabira Sheikh, the director of the Masakini Theater in Kuala Lumpur, and Joanna Sherman, the director of Bond Street Theater. And we're sitting there kind of talking, meeting each other, seeing how we might attack these issues and what we might do. So what we did is we created a show to bring to all the different refugee communities to talk about what their rights are in this foreign country for them. This is at the at a Somali community center, and in this particular scene, we're talking about medical help. What rights do they have to achieve medical help? How can UNHCR help, or what are the limits of the help they can get in terms of getting medical attention? Dealing with the police. Of course, you can imagine there's so many troubles there. What are their legal opportunities and rights? What happens if they're taken in by the police? Can they ask for a translator? How might Asylum Access help in that area? Here was a scene about education. You know, what kind of education can you hope to get if you are a registered refugee with the UNHCR? What if you're not? What rights do you have? And this was performed at an Afghan community center. So we were really trying to reach out to all the different groups with performance by the Masakini Theater actors. I participated, and Joanna as well. And also we had members of the Rohingya Women's Development Company. So after the show, this is probably the best part. The people really got the idea. What was the message of the show? And they had so many questions that this was the opportunity for Asylum Access and Sharifa to talk about what their NGO was doing and how they might be able to help. So after our presentation, there was plenty of time for question and answer to give out information and references and try to help them where they could go. So I want to bring up one other issue here. In the show were a number, as I said, a few of the Rohingya refugees. And I'm pointing to Saida here. She's in the foreground here. This was a scene they were doing about the struggles of family life, you know, the tensions and the anxieties of being a family of refugees. So Fatima is there. I think she was playing another daughter. Saida is the mother, and Sharifa is off in the background. Yes, the director of the center was also a performer in it, and she's being the disconnected teenager who just can't deal with it, so she's just constantly on her cell phone. So what's interesting is that about a year after we did this whole project back in 2017, Sharifa actually got her visa to immigrate to the United States. And she is, as of today, living in Texas. And as she went, we were wondering, well, what is the directorship of the Rohingyas Women's Development Center? Are they still working? So we didn't know it at the time, but I now want to show a video I just found a week ago, put out by UNHCR, and it actually revolves around Saida. So maybe we can play that video.
I AWDN mare Rohingya leader hisabe ham korite 3 বছর হয়ে I AWDN ham kori bole kala faisla loi hoile AWDN mare ham kori bara I my friend ra empower kori pari to bada my friend ra madad kori pari I age fonna forina hari to 4 বছর আগে I AWDN mare ai bade লেখা পড়া শিখি বিয়া গজিলাম নে 15 বছর 15 বছর জামাই ফাকো বিয়া গলে এবার গা ধেমাক তৈয়ার নাই তো ইনা বাবুতে এবার ফ্যামিলি বাবুতে তো বুঝি না হারে ফাইনা বাবুতে তো বুঝি না হারে আই গুড়া হালে বিয়া গরি ফ্লাইট তালা আর বচপনা আজে গে ভাল লাগে আনতো তো আই স্কুল যাইনা ভারি কলেজ যাইনা ভারি ইয়ানা আজকে Rohingya my friend gura hale biya gori fala tala itara school zan yan moka yan ara fala har go jamai har go bafatun har go baitun zoruri loide itara mayain boinain berian munto nayore ti available itara ton hamisha spot go हम यहाँ अल्लाह बिशी ज़रूरी केला होला ऐरा आए बात आर ज़िंदगी बदलले तो बिशी सा my friend ज़िंदगी वो बदलले राइन दिखिला ऐसा मतो आरो my friend रा तो आए बात है ट्रेनिंग दिवाला इतना रे चाल मारे बाबूता डोमेस्टिक वाले बाबूता आरो ट्रेनिंग दिवाला कुछ भी आई आशा करी ता आरो रोहिंग्या my friend बिकेनी तारा हक निजे सिना फाइन तो बात इतना हक लागी तारा तिया बारे बात
Great. So it was such a joy to see that Saida has taken over this role of being a strong activist. Now, I don't want to say that our theater company taught her the courage and the motivation to do this. She was pretty motivated. She was coming to all the rehearsals throughout the project. In fact, in many of our projects and projects of my compatriots, theater does have that effect. It does give people courage and motivation to take on many wonderful things, not doing theater, but doing engagement in their community. But I think I can say that what she did in our project and what our project did for her is to emphasize and we encouraged that the courage and the motivation she already had. We validated it and showed her that, wow, she could really do this. She could actually step in front of people and bring them a message and assist with people. So I'm going to turn it over now. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you'll look us up again, find out more about what Bond Street's doing after we get back on the road in 2021. So I'm turning it now over to Tricia, and see you soon.
Michael, thank you so much for that overview of the incredible work that you guys are doing over in Broad Street Theater. I am so honored to be here today and be involved in this incredible program, and to be doing so to introduce my friend, colleague, and fellow advocate for human rights and human rights education, Jess Burnquist. Jess is a poet and new novelist after this year's NaNoWriMo, and she's a passionate educator. She is currently making her mark as the Vice President of Education for Rock Your World, which is where we met and we became kindred spirits. I think we might have always been kindred spirits, but it was solidified with Rock Your World. So now, Jess Burnquist, I'm so excited to say the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tricia, and we have always been kindred spirits, undoubtedly. So welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today and cannot wait to share with you the work that we do for educators and young people around the globe. And I'll begin by sharing a few slides. So Rock Your World and Rock Your Rights are the names of the programs that I direct under our nonprofit agency that's anchored in social media and impact, social impact, I should say, through multimedia, called Creative Visions. Next slide, please. And Creative Visions was founded by Kathy Eldon and her daughter Amy, and it was inspired by the life of Dan Eldon, who was a 22-year-old photojournalist and who was killed, unfortunately, while on assignment in Somalia in 1993. Next slide. And after his death, his mother, Kathy, and sister Amy discovered 20 of his journals that were bursting with collages that reflected his adventurous spirit and his life as a creative activist, which means someone who uses multimedia to create positive change in the world. So you can use art, theater, film, you name it, to draw attention to the areas that you or issues that you care most about. And in this case, and in our case, we help you to draw attention to human rights issues and issues of sustainability. So Dan was a creative activist for the entirety of his life, and he never let his age stop him from trying to make a positive impact on human rights issues. And you can learn more about his inspiring life in a film called The Journey is the Destination that's available on Netflix. Next slide. So, as I mentioned before, one of the programs that I now direct that's anchored in the ideals and practices of Dan's life, which we really have boiled down to inquiry or curiosity, discovery, and action, is called Rock Your World. And Rock Your World is a free, standards-aligned curriculum. Next slide. And it helps teachers to empower students to learn about human rights and then to use multimedia to create advocacy projects about the issues that students care most about. So these projects can include public service announcements, photography exhibitions, theater, one-acts, plays, podcasts, you name it. Next slide. And our youth programming at Creative Visions includes Rock Your Rights, like I mentioned before, and also the Rock Out Mentorship Program. So Rock Out Mentorships pairs students with professional artists and practicing activists. So that as students are creating their human rights projects, they have professionals in the field on the ground to help guide them in that process. We work with schools and individual students, and when you complete our program, you become eligible to become a mentor, which means you can serve your community and pass on the goodness and stay in the loop as well. So why don't I show you a quick video about our mentorships?
This program has taught me that making a difference in the world isn't just the impossible task it's often made out to be.
It's been awesome to see the excitement and the dedication and just the real, thirst for change.
The ripple effect of change begins with empathy and outrage, and the question, how can I help?
So it's been inspiring, and I wish it was something that was available for me when I was in high school.
I've loved art as long as I can remember, and I'm also very passionate about social justice work. I just recently started to get very involved in racial justice in my town. I'm really into empowering women, and so I wanted to kind of combine the two things and empower the Black women in my community.
Thankfully, we have young folks like Layla who want to make sure that our voices are heard.
We could really utilize entertainment and media as a platform and as a tool to reflect in the society that we want to see.
Being able to hear from real people through this program who are out there demanding and enacting change made me realize I have every ability to make change.
Mentorship program has filled up for fall and winter, but please keep checking our website as well as our social media to learn about the spring session, which will probably kick off in February. Regarding the Rock Your Rights program, we feature creative reactions to current events. So as you start to dive into your advocacy, if you're making films, writing poems, telling stories, whatever art it is that you tap into to draw attention to the issues you care about, we want to amplify those for you and also connect you to other kids and young people who are doing the same thing and give you even more opportunities for action. So you can do that on our Rock Your Rights website. And so I'll show you a quick sizzle that one of our visionary interns created for us about Rock Your Rights. Yay, and so go ahead and you can share that. We're just so excited to let you know that there is a place for you to share your activism as you begin to explore and create. And you can just do that by submitting your work into our online gallery and also keeping appraised of other groups just like you and young people just like you who are interested in making a positive impact in the world. And so with that, I'm going to turn the floor back to Tricia.
Thank you so much, Jess. Now I have the pleasure of moderating some questions that we've received from young people around the world, and we had to kind of cull it down to just a couple, but for you and Michael. So if we can bring both Jess and Michael back. Readings. And the first question, actually, Jess, is for you. And the question, again, it's in the voice of the person asking the question, is how can we help more people and raise awareness as kids?
How can we help more people and raise awareness as kids? Well, I think the first task in all of that is to not become overwhelmed, to look to other youth activists to see what they're doing, to become inspired by them, and then really to dig deep, journal, think about what interests you the most, figure out who you are and trust yourself to know what area you really want to address the most. And once you've done that, then it's it's really about being authentic in your approach, because people know if you're, you know, laying it on thick, or if you really care about something. And when people can sense that this is meaningful to you, it can become very quickly meaningful to them. So I stand by that. Just be honest with yourself, pick an art that resonates with you, and go for it.
Great, Jess, thank you so much. And Michael, this is a big one. Are you prepared? Bracing yourself?
I'm braced.
Okay. So your first question is, how important are human rights? It's a big one.
You can't ask me my favorite color. You have to go with that. Well, it's an easy answer, actually, because human rights are very, very important. But here's the thing. We've traveled, as you can see from the video, in so many different countries, I think about 50 countries to date, and we've met so many cultures, so very different, so vibrant, so much interesting stuff going on there, and even the religious aspects. I'm an agnostic myself, but to learn all the worshiping ways that people do around the world, it's very inspiring and very interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of the rights and the way that rights are defined within a community, they might be coming from a very diverse group. It could be clerics, it could be a tribal elder, it could be a president, and they're going to really vary. So I think it is urgent that we try to find the rights for all of the humans. We have to try to say what it is that we're all believing for everyone around the world. If we're going to all survive as the human race on the planet, we've got to have a Declaration of Human Rights.
Absolutely. Well said. You took on that question. I'm impressed. Yes. All right, Jess, this one's going to be back to you. The question is, what suggestions, recommendations, advice do you and Rock Your World have for young artist activists?
Oh, wonderful question. So I would recommend that if you are not sure where to begin, you go ahead and check out our site. And there's an amazing toolkit called the Dan Eldon Creative Activist Toolkit, which sort of abbreviates the process of whittling down what you think you might want to do and how to do that, and gives you tons of resources to explore further. So that might be a great starting place. And the other thing is that you should really seek out others who care about the same things you do. Dan used to call this selecting your team with care. It's really important that you have like-minded individuals working with you on something to keep each other buoyed when maybe you're feeling like it's too challenging or too big of a problem. And to remember that you're trying to make the world better, not perfect. So it's okay if you slip up along the way. You just have to keep trying. And last thing, it's definitely okay if your interests change along the way. Being involved and engaged in uplifting human rights and their relevance, it's okay if you switch human right from, number 14 to number 20. That's okay. Just stay in the game and get people who want to be in there with you.
Awesome advice, Jess. Thank you so much. And then Michael, this next one is for you. Question is, why theater? Like, why should we use theater to address human rights issues?
Well, if you have a human rights issue, if there is an issue that someone has with your human right, that probably means debate. That probably means a conflict. And theater is perfect because that's what theater shows are all about, is conflict. Somebody smarter than me once said that the Greeks invented democracy and theater at about the same time. And it's really true, because as they were figuring out the whole idea of democracy as a debate among the people, their theater shows all dealt with a debate of one another. One quick example is, we know the play Antigone. In Antigone, her brother has died being the enemy of the state, and his body is out there on the field. She wants to bury it. That's what her religion tells her she's got to bury it. But the king, who's the uncle of Antigone, does not want to bury it. He was the enemy. He should rot out there. The whole debate is between, are you listening to the state or do you listen to the religion? What's the conflict there? Now, of course, a playwright or an ensemble that's coming up with a play might have a point of view that ends the play with a particular slant. We have to acknowledge that. But that also gives the identity, the opportunity with freedom of speech for another theater company to come out and present those facts and maybe give their point of view. It's very important, and I think theater definitely has a role to illuminate these issues.
I love that explanation, and it does make me want to go back and read some of those Greek tragedies again. I'm like Oedipus, Antigone. I'm doing it. I'm gonna do it. Okay, so then the next question is actually for both of you. So I'm gonna field it and let you decide who goes first. Question is, when I see something I think is about human rights, how should I start to think about using my creativity to respond?
Michael, go ahead.
You know, something that comes to mind, I gotta show you something really kind of silly. This is something, and Patrick would know, we learned this from the Columbione clowns. They showed us this little, funny little gesture, right? And we started just teaching that because we knew it. It was a little trick in our bag of tricks. And when we were in Kosovo, in the refugee camps, a doctor came up to us and said, "That is brilliant." I said, "It is?" And he went, "Yeah, because you know what happens in trauma? When people are traumatized, one of the physiological things that happen is that the connections between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain start to get broken. So by doing any kind of activity, dance, or anything that crosses the hemispheres is actually physiologically aiding to restore those connections." We're like, we had no idea. That's my message, I'd have to say, is that you probably already have, and I think Jess was pointing this out, you've got a bag of tricks already that you don't even know how significant it could be to helping out the situation. So I would say that is what my recommendation is, to, as Jess also said, meet people who are doing the issue that you want to address, and then figure out, oh, I've got the thing that'll solve that.
Love that. I think that it's important to also go ahead and find organizations that you can partner with, that you can use as models for the goals that you have in mind. Oprah Winfrey said a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself. So if you're starting to doubt yourself, find people who can validate your goals, not give you a yes when you maybe deserve a rethink this, but who can definitely say, stay in the game, keep trying. The other thing is that you want to think about what your goals are. Are you trying to start a movement, raise funds, change education, or make people more aware? When you identify what your long-term goal is, it's easier to work kind of backwards to make steps that make sense to achieving that goal. Last thing though, fail and fail and fail again, because every time we fail and we don't meet those goals that we originally had in mind, we learn, and every experience feeds into the next, and everybody doubts themselves at some point, and there's nobody on this panel, nobody in the world who hasn't at one time thought, do I really deserve to be heard? You do. It's what makes our world so unique and humanity shine. And when we can shine about the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or about things having to do with sustainability, then our lives become better and our world becomes better. So I hope you'll join in, and I hope you'll share what you're doing with the Rock Your Rights team and gallery.
Yes, I love that. Okay. Any final words? This is for both of you. Any final words of advice for all the creative young people who are in attendance today?
Go ahead, Jess. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to thank you for hanging in and being with us today, and for learning about the UDHR and the United Nations. And I really want to thank UNA Westchester and all the parties involved today to make this event happen. Remember to connect with us however you can. Reach out to me personally. My email is on the website. I would love to hear from you and help you in any way that I can. So thanks again for being part of this.
Yeah, and I'll second that for sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to get in touch with you guys. I'll tell you that. And Bond Street Theater, and just keep your passion alive. You know, don't let anybody put the water on your fire. You know.
Yes, and Michael, I would be remiss if I did not honor all the thespian young people who might be online who are like, what is that thing that you said that you learned? Can you teach? Can you teach that someday? Because I'm like, I know that my thespian students are like, teach me that. Go
okay, you guys have to participate too. So you have your hands out, thumbs up, turn them over, one hand on top of the other. Lace your fingers. Now just bring your hands underneath. Now, keep your fingers crossed, put them on your nose, and let them come off like that. No, you moved your, no, that's not it at all. No. One more time. Out like this, hands down, and one over the top. Lace the fingers, come over, fingers on your nose, and it simply unwinds without, no, that's not it. I don't get, I'm sure all the teenagers out there are doing it, but I'll show you the trick, because of course there's a trick. There's always a trick. And here it is. As your hands are out, when you flip them over, whichever hand is on top, it doesn't matter which one, that pinky is on the top. So you lace your fingers that way. Feels weird, feels uncomfortable, right? But when you bring them underneath and you keep those fingers crossed on your nose, now don't uncross them, keep them crossed. As you put them on your nose, they should unwind. All right, you can play with it a little bit more. But actually, that's a very important thing in that. As I said, most people can't do it because they're holding their hands in the comfortable position, and that's wrong to end it. You got to be in that uncomfortable position, which is the metaphor for everything. You're going to be uncomfortable as you pursue this work, but suddenly it becomes second nature and you find a way to make it all work.
Also, Michael, that was really fun. And so I think that's something else we need to remember along the way too. Find joy in what you're doing. Have fun. Be silly. It doesn't have to be serious and dire, even though the issues might be. Thanks so much.
Yes, that was wonderful. I say always bring a bit of whimsy into everything you do. So thank you for entertaining that. And Patrick, we're back to you. The floor is yours.
We hope you enjoyed our presentation and look forward to having you enjoy our presentations in the future. It was my great pleasure to be able to work together with these wonderful artists to create this opportunity for you. And we would like to thank them, certainly. We thank UNICEF for allowing us to interface with Ms. Brown. And if you'd like to know any more about what Ms. Brown is promoting as a Goodwill Ambassador at UNICEF, please visit them at unicef.org. We are the United Nations Association Westchester chapter. And if you'd like to know more about our presentations and what we have upcoming in the future, please visit us at unawestchester.org. And we are a membership organization. We remind you that youth are members free of charge. And so we invite you to become members, and we invite all adults and youth to become members of UNA Westchester because you'll really enjoy the programming we do here. I'd like to thank the Bond Street Theater for their time, and thank you so much, Michael, for being with us. The Bond Street Theater is, as was mentioned before, putting together during this COVID period some wonderful documentaries on its work, and they certainly need your support, as do all the arts, at this critical time. If you'd like to learn more about Bond Street Theater and support their work, please visit them at bondst.org. That's the Bond Street Theater in New York and working around the world for global peace. Rock Your World, as you have learned, is core curriculum, therefore entrenched into our educational system, and we'd love to see it grow even further. If you'd like to learn more about Rock Your World, you'll go on to the internet at rock-your-world-org. rock-your-world.org. You have to put the dashes in is the point. We hope that you're able to enjoy their work and maybe even join in if you're a youngster in middle and high school on interpreting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in its entirety or any one of its 30 articles creatively. We'd love to see that. As a matter of fact, we're going to go out with a poster that I think is wonderful to give an example. It translates all of the 30 articles of the Declaration of Human Rights into little stickman figures. I hope you enjoy them. Once again, my name is Patrick Sharada. I've enjoyed being your host here. Thank you, Millie, for enabling this program to be so widely accepted and brought the interest level up so great. We look forward to working with you again. We look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, or if you're out of this time zone, enjoy the rest of your morning or good evening. Bye-bye now.